So, Tom, I'm not sure where to start, but I guess we might as well go to the David Johnston story because this broke, I guess, very late on Friday.
Yeah, just after
And
we
I
had
was,
spoken. Yeah.
yeah, and I was, I was kind of mocking, if you will, Dominic LeBlanc's announcement earlier this afternoon. I always, when people do this with a straight face, it's hard not to laugh. The idea that, he's saying that, well, of course, the Liberals never put the idea of a public inquiry out of their minds. It was always a
Always on
possibility,
the
Of
right?
table,
course.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, there's another experienced lawyer with a very serious education, just like Dominic LeBlanc, named Rudy Giuliani, who doesn't mind humiliating himself by just delivering the lines that have been prepared for him by the people around his leader. And this happened to Dominic LeBlanc over the weekend. He says, no, this, a full public inquiry was never off the table. Hello? This whole thing around Johnston, you invented this position as special rapporteur so that he would give you advice not to hold a public inquiry. And all of a sudden you're saying that this was always part of your plan. Look, the good news is that Canadians are finally going to have a full, complete commission of inquiry into Chinese government interference in Canadian elections. Yay! We get to defend our institutions, find out exactly what went wrong and how we failed to protect it. Look, after his appearance that lasted 3.5 hours before the parliamentary committee last Tuesday, it was inevitable that he was going to step down. It was a bit awkward. I went to the press gallery dinner, the annual press gallery dinner in Ottawa on Saturday night. So of course everybody was, gossiping and chit-chatting about that. And there were a lot of people trying to say, well, he was resigned by the Prime Minister's office. Well, turns out, no, he actually caught them a little bit off guard because Trudeau had already zipped off to Kyiv, and it was apparently something that really wasn't expected. And I have a feeling that Johnson just took stock of the situation and realized he was in an impossible position. It would have been much better for him and for his sterling reputation up until this point if he had simply come to that decision earlier, but he didn't. The rest is going to be history. People will look at it, a few years from now, maybe come to a different conclusion, but David Johnston is somebody I quite like. I know well personally. He's done a lot for the country, and it's a shame that his career ends with this sort of tailspin.
I almost want to ask who would want that job going forward?
Well, I think that the answer to that has to be, Aaron, that it can't be a single person. We tend to forget that the Charbonneau Commission was 3 people. It was Madame la Juge France Charbonneau, but it was also Rod MacDonald of McGill Law School, former dean. He got quite ill and he was never able to participate as much as he would have liked to in the mandate, and a former Auditor General of the province of Quebec, Mr. Renault. So when you have things that are this big, the only other recent one federally that we can compare it to in terms of the scope and the size of what has to be covered is the Commission of Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women in Canada, and that was, again, a 3-person panel. So that's the way to go. You find somebody who's a seasoned judge. It has to be a judge. Somebody who's got a good track record, very respected on all sides. Think Louise Arbour, former Supreme Court Justice. She's the type of person you'd want for this type of job. And then you have 2 other people. You can imagine somebody with deep experience on the intelligence side, how governments gather information on each other and how they act, and then maybe somebody more on the social side, understanding how diaspora communities work, that sort of thing. So I think that there's an excellent opportunity to have a good balanced panel. I'm also predicting, as I have for some time, that Mr. Trudeau's going sooner rather than later to an election because he doesn't want, if this thing gets set up and can start hearing witnesses and making findings prior or even worse, during the election, then it would be absolute chaos for Trudeau. It would play right into the election campaign. So I'm once again fearlessly predicting that we're going to an election sooner rather than later.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Fearless indeed.
Yeah, I felt like there'd been a shift on that part. I was, as you were recommending judges for that job, I was biting my tongue because I figure Russell Brown will not be applying for that. He's decided to step down from the Supreme Court. Good decision, I think.
Yeah, it's a big decision, and it's a difficult one because I happen to know him. I've met him, and he's a very affable person, very gregarious. It turns out that this was at an award ceremony for Madame la Juge Louise Arbour. She was being given a recognition award for her international criminal law work and her career in the United States. Everybody respects her. Everybody likes her. And he went down, to attend that.
In Arizona.
He would have been in a bar at the resort where he was. And this just in, when you're in a position like his, you don't go into a bar alone. You're staffed. You've got somebody with you. So there were some people chatting within earshot of him where he was sitting at the bar. He came and sat down because there was an empty chair. Turns out that it was a recently retired Marine who had done several tours of duty, who said it was his chair. Words were exchanged. We don't know the rest of it. Here's how this works. When you're a judge and you're under the microscope like that, they do a first analysis of it. And if there's anything at all to the complaint, then it has to go to a public inquiry. We want people to have confidence in judges and in the judicial system. These things used to be sort of backroom stuff, hush hush. Now it's an open public hearing. He was told last Thursday that there was enough information that was credible there for this to go to a public hearing. He was told that on Thursday, and he said, give me the weekend to think about it. And they said, fine, we won't make any announcement. So he was given the weekend to think about it, and he simply announced today that he was stepping down. He's still relatively young. He's 56 years old. He could go back to the practice of law, highly respected lawyer, one of the best of his generation, very, very good. He's a conservative. He was named by Harper, but he's a very good judge, very fair-minded, but, of the type to say, judges shouldn't be making up the law. We should be respecting the will of Parliament, that sort of stuff, and respects a lot the jurisdiction of provinces. So it's a voice that's going to be missed. He'll be replaced, obviously, by somebody more in Mr. Trudeau's mold than in Mr. Harper's, and that's normal. We don't have quite the same fights that the Americans do over Supreme Court justices, and our court is quite balanced, frankly.
Okay. I will get to one thing which broke again late on the weekend. We haven't talked about it at all, I don't think. Donald Trump indicted on 37 different criminal charges. It's already a media circus, and he's not even in Florida. We have to watch him taking off from Bedminster, New Jersey today. This is going to be a spectacle. But Tom, the thing I heard today, and maybe we shouldn't be surprised, they, of course, have already done a poll, and they showed that these charges, as serious as they may be, and I think they're the most serious that he's faced so far, that his popularity is actually going up.
Yeah, never underestimate the importance of celebrity. This guy is a celebrity president. Berlusconi, another celebrity, just passed away in Italy. I mean, he ran that country into the ground. He demolished its economy. He was there for himself. He did whatever he thought would help him, and he was probably the model that Trump followed, willfully or not. And it's the same thing. Trump's going to rile up his base. He owns the Republican Party. Nobody could dare take him on. And he's got more than enough ability to keep driving them all crazy from now until kingdom come. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to be pushed out by his own party. But I think that what's going to happen is the same thing that happened in the midterms. Everybody thought that the Republicans were going to do really well against this old guy, Joe Biden. And now, out of the blue, Biden did a heck of a lot better simply because middle of the road folks, the undecided, they're taking another look at Trump and saying, you know what, you're batty. And we just don't need more insecurity and madness in the White House. You've been amusing. You are a celebrity. We've had some fun with you, but you're gone. And I think that that's what's going to happen. I think Biden's going to kick his rear end and let Trump stick around, but he's not going to be able to win. He can't steal the election. And he can complain from now until kingdom come that the last one was stolen from him. But, of course, nobody in their right mind believes him.
By the way, just to wrap up, I actually heard one of the political analysts, I think it was on CBS over the weekend, Tom, because the question, invariably had to be asked, what happens if he's found guilty and goes to jail or goes to prison? And the answer is there is nothing in the U.S. Constitution that would keep him from actually being the president, even if he was in prison.
Yep, that is completely true. Yep.
Oh, my. Tom Mulcair.